Okay, anybody who just got on, like I tried to log in a little while ago. It took me forever just to get the information in. And then it said that something happened that logged my content out of YouTube and I had to re-log in. So it's taken a while longer than I had really hoped. But I am here. It's just later than it was supposed to be. Let me go ahead and try to get a chat sent. That where it needs to be. I can close this. Did it work? I'm going to put my speaker on. It did not go through, so let's try this again. Okay, try that. And there we go. We have it. Just in time. Okay, so I can back. No, I can leave that there. That way, if I need to send another chat message, I can do it. Remember, if you have any questions, comments, advice, anything like that, you can leave it in the chats. I will try to see it. I do have my speaker on, so if a chat comes in, I should hear it, so I can respond. All right, time is up. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. This is Venus Brown. I am back with more reading of Margaret Atwood's book called The Testaments. We are now in chapter 29. This is going to be another Aunt Lydia chapter. And after that, we start on part 12, which is called Carpitz, and this is going back into the flashbacks of Daisy / Baby Nicole on the TV show. It's not Baby Nicole, it's just some girl that calls herself Daisy that apparently whose real name was Marguerite. That's a new thing. On the book, it is Daisy, who is also Baby Nicole or Baby Holly from the TV series. And I think they eventually kind of shift her name to Jade to throw off the scent. But in the show, they don't have to do that because her real name was never Daisy, and she was already being called Daisy, so they just changed her name on her documents to Daisy. Anyway, let's see. We can go ahead and start reading Aunt Lydia's chapter. All right. Ooh, I have to close this up so that it's lined up properly. All right. Now, let's go to page 157, called Sackcloth. So part 11 is called Sackcloth. Maybe because the material that they're wearing. And if you watched the show recently, it's Lydia that picks out this cloth. She gets nothing but brown swatches of cloth to choose from. But the first cloth that she touches, basically, that she tests, she feels that it is rough. It does not feel all that comfortable. He comments on the fact that it does not feel comfortable, and she says, no, I imagine it won't feel comfortable. Like that's what she's going for. Because again, This is the kind of person Aunt Lydia is. She does have this rough around the edges side. And so from the very beginning, even though she was not a Gilead true believer, she is okay with doing these harsh things to get people in line in her view. And plus, she believes that she's saving lives by doing this because people that are not going to conform to what Gilead wants are likely to end up killed, tortured, imprisoned, whatever. So, tactics to stay alive. Let's go ahead and start the reading. Ardua Hall, chapter 29. Last night I had a nightmare. I've had it before. Earlier in this account, I said I would not try your patience with a recital of my dreams. But as this one has a bearing on what I am about to tell you, I will make an exception. You are, of course, fully in control of what you choose to read, and may pass over this dream of mine at will. I am standing in the stadium wearing the brown dressing gown-like garment that was issued to me in the repurposed hotel during my recovery from the think tank. Standing in a line with me are several other women in the same penitential garb, and several men in black uniforms. Each of us has a rifle. We know that some of these rifles contain blanks, some do not. But we will all be killers nonetheless, because it's the thought that counts. Facing us are 2 rows of women, one standing, one kneeling. They are not wearing blindfolds. I can see their faces. I recognize them, each and every one. Former friends, former clients, former colleagues, all more recently women and girls who have passed through my hands. Wives, daughters, handmaids. Some have fingers, some have missing fingers, some have 1 foot, some have 1 eye. Some have ropes around their neck. I have judged them. I have passed sentence. Once a judge, always a judge. But they are all smiling. What do I see in their eyes? Fear? Contempt? Defiance? Pity? It's impossible to tell. Those of us with rifles raise them. We fire. Something enters my lungs. I can't breathe. I choke. I fall. I wake up in a cold sweat, heart pounding. They say that a nightmare can frighten you to death, that your heart can literally stop. Will this bad dream kill me one of these nights? Surely it will take more than that. I was telling you about my seclusion in the think tank and the luxurious experience in the hotel room that followed. It was like a recipe for tough steak. Hammer it with a mallet, then marinate and tenderize. And she used this same comment in the show when it came to her teaching of the girls. And she also makes the comment of how she had gone through the similar experience, and I think she takes that to heart. She utilizes it throughout this whole process of trying to train these girls, whether they be handmaids or plums or wives, to become the women that hopefully Gilead will not kill, women that will survive, women that hopefully will thrive, but some will not, because sometimes her treatments will actually kill them or weaken them. But that's another matter. So let's go on. An hour after I'd put on the penitential garb provided for me, there was a knock at the door. A 2-man escort was waiting. I was conducted along the corridor to another room. My white-bearded interlocutor from the time before was there, not behind a desk this time, but seated comfortably in an armchair. "You may sit down," said Commander Judd. This time I was not forced into the chair. I sat down in it of my own accord. "I hope our little regiment was not too strenuous for you," he said. "You were treated only to level 1. So what does that mean? You were only treated to level 1? What was beyond level 1? There was nothing to be said to this, so I said nothing. "Was it enlightening?" "How do you mean?" "Did you see the light, the divine light?" Was the right answer to this? What was the right answer to this? He would know if I were lying. "It was enlightening," I said. This seemed to be sufficient. 53. "You mean my age?" "Yes," I said. "You've had lovers," he said. I wondered how he had found that out, and was slightly flattered that he'd even bothered. "Briefly," I said. "Several. No long-term successes." Had I ever been in love? I don't think so. Excuse me. My experience with men in my family had not encouraged trust. But the body has its twitches, which it can be humiliating as well as rewarding to obey. No lasting harm was done to me. Some pleasure was both given and received, and none of these individuals took. Their swift dismissal from my life was a personal affront. Why expect more? "You had an abortion," he said. "So they'd been rifling through some of my records." "Only one," I said fatuously. "I was very young." He made a disapproving grunt. "You are aware that this form of person murder is now punishable by death. The law is retroactive." So exactly as they put it in the show. Pretty sure the line was exactly the same. I was not aware of that. I felt cold, but if they were going to shoot me, why this interrogation? One marriage, a brief one. It was a mistake. "Divorce is now a crime," he said. I said nothing. "Never blessed with children?" "No." "Wasted your woman's body, denied its natural function?" "It didn't happen," I said, keeping the edge out of my voice as much as I could. "Pity," he said. "Under us, every virtuous woman may have a child, one way or another, as God intended." So, they're seeing these freaking monthly rapes of handmaids and these forced marriages with other girls as God's intention, which is just fucking disturbing, but it's fucking Gilead, so what do we expect? "But I expect you were fully occupied in your so-called career." I ignored the slight. "I had a demanding schedule, yes." "2 terms as a school teacher?" "Yes, but I went back to law." Okay, so in the show, it was kind of the other way around. She had a little while as a judge or lawyer or whatever, and then she went to school teaching and decided to stay with school teaching, which also goes along with her comment she made when she was being questioned, that she loved children and that's why she decided to teach. "Yes, but I went back to law school. Domestic cases, sexual assault, female criminals, sex workers suing for enhanced protection, property rights and divorces, medical malpractice, especially by gynecologists, removal of children from unfit mothers." He had taken out a list and was reading from it. So, all that stuff, if you look at the roles that they have placed on ants, all of it applies. Trying to make this regime that they believe attacks all these problems and solves them, even though it really doesn't, because these fucking creeps are still running things and they're still doing this shit just under their fucking noses. And because they have so much power, they're much less likely to get fucking in trouble for it. Unless, of course, the correct eyes find out about it and the correct decisions are made to actually remove them. But we've seen plenty of cases in The Handmaid's Tale that these men were doing this shit regularly amongst themselves. Sometimes even amongst the eyes of the eyes and not having anything done until something happens where it's brought out into the open. When somebody out in the open finds out, then all of a sudden, oh, we've got to chop off somebody's arms, or we've got to assassinate somebody, or we've got to kidnap them and torture them, or whatever. But otherwise, we're just going to let these guys do whatever the fuck they're doing. I mean, I'm pretty sure even when Nick was going to the eyes and telling them some of the stuff that was happening, it was obviously against their Gilead laws, but they were still letting it go. Letting it go because they're looking for something else or something different. Something that stinks to the population, something that the others around the population are going to notice, but not just those higher ups in command. At least that's what it looked like to me. When necessary, yes, I said. Short stint as a volunteer at a rape crisis center. When I was a student, I said. The South Street Sanctuary, yes? You stopped because... I got too busy, I said. Then I added another truth, as there was no point in not being frank. Also, it wore me down. And I can tell you just from the few months or couple months that I spent working at a rehab center for drug and alcohol, it was a lot. It was a lot. I mean, I had a lot thrown at me because I was coming in right after the COVID epidemic. Social isolation stuff was being ended, and I was having to catch up all these cases that had been let go during that whole period. And there were several counselors that were in my same position who never came back. So I was taking the place of counselors that had gone. I was doing extra workload already. Even if I just had one person's workload, it was already an extra workload because of the extra period of time without those cases being tended to, really. And the leadership just kept piling more and more on, but it is a lot. And plus taking in all the new accounts, the new customers, the new people that had new casework to be done. So yeah, it was a lot. But I honestly found the counseling and the teaching to be very rewarding. It was the massive amount of paperwork and catching up all these cases that were backlogged that was so freaking awful. And the constantly getting new mandates from the higher echelons to add more work onto our already heavy workload, that made it even worse. That made it really trying. So anyway, so different reasons for it wearing me down, but still, it was a lot. It was definitely a lot. Okay, yes, he said, twinkling, it wears you down. All that needless suffering of women. We intend to eliminate that. I'm sure you approve. He paused, as if giving me a moment to ponder this, and then he smiled anew. So, which is it to be? My old self would have said, which of what? Or something similarly casual. Instead, I said, you mean yes or no? Correct. You have experienced the consequences of no, or some of them, whereas yes, let me just say that those who are not with us are against us. So again, same as in here, but used in a slightly different situation. I see, I said. Then it's yes. Because he has not handed her a gun yet. Yet, at least, I don't think. You will have to prove, he said, that you mean it. And you're prepared to do that? Yes, I said again. How? There was an ordeal. You have most likely suspected what it was. It was like my nightmare, except that the women were blindfolded, and when I shot, I did not fall. This was Commander Judd's test. Fail it, and your commitment to the one true way would be voided. Pass it, and blood was on your hands. As someone once said, we must all hang together, or we will all hang separately. I did show some weakness. I threw up afterwards. One of the targets was Anita. Why had she been singled out to die, even after the think tank? She must have said no instead of yes. She must have chosen a quick exit. But in fact, I have no idea why. Perhaps it was very simple. She was not considered useful to the regime, whereas I was. So we're in a part of the show where they're showing some of this, but they are not being open and honest about what's going on. So I cannot tell for sure if the Vidala in the show that is going through these experiences is reacting the way she is because she is part of this regime already and doesn't want to open up and acknowledge it to Lydia, or if she legitimately isn't part of this and they decided to go a different route and she doesn't know what's going on and this is just how she's reacting. I cannot tell for sure yet, and I'm trying on the show reactions. I'm trying to wait until we have more definitive information to actually talk more openly on my reactions about this. But it's like, come on, when are you going to freaking actually let us know whether she is the person that she is in the story or whether you've gone some other direction, which I really don't want them to go another direction. And honestly, the behavior that she has been displaying in these flashbacks to me speaks of somebody that is with Gilead, that knows some of what's going on, but is shocked at how freaking horrible it is. I suspect that these are religious people that were being told by their leadership that they were going to have to make a sacrifice and they were going to make a better world and make everything all fucking peachy for them. And then when they start carrying out their sacrifices, it's like too much and they can't deal with it because it is not what they thought they were paying for. But in reality, it's exactly what they're paying for. But I don't know. Anyway, probably should continue on. Okay, so this morning I got up an hour early to steal a few moments before breakfast with you, my reader. You have become somewhat of an obsession, my sole confidant, my only friend. For to whom can I tell the truth besides you? Who else can I trust? Not that I can trust you either. Who is more likely to betray me in the end? I will lie neglected in some spidery corner or under a bed while you go off to picnics and dances. Yes, dancing will return. It's hard to suppress it forever. Or to trysts with a warm body so much more attractive than the wad of crumbling paper I will have become. But I forgive you in advance. I too was once like you, fatally hooked on life. Why am I taking your existence for granted? Perhaps you will never materialize. You're only a wish, a possibility, a phantom. Dare I say, a hope? I am allowed to hope, surely. It's not yet the midnight of my life. The bell has not yet tolled. And Mephistopheles has not yet turned up to collect the price I must pay for our bargain. For there was a bargain, of course there was. Though I didn't make it with the devil, I made it with Commander Judd, which I would argue is making a deal with the devil, but whatever. Let's parse some words here. My first meeting with Elizabeth, Helena, and Vidala took place the day after my trial by murder in the stadium. The four of us were ushered into one of the hotel boardrooms. We all looked different then. Younger, trimmer, less gnarled. Elizabeth, Helena, and I were wearing the brown sack-like garments I've described, but Vidala already had on a proper uniform. Not the aunt's uniform, later devised, but a black one. Commander Judd was awaiting us. He sat at the head of the boardroom table naturally. Before him was a tray with a coffee pot and cups. He poured ceremoniously, smiling. "Congratulations," he began. "You have passed the test. You are brands snatched from the burning." He poured his own coffee, added creamer, sipped. You may have been wondering why a person such as myself, successful enough under the previous corrupt dispensation, has acted in the way I have. Excuse me. Don't think I don't realize the gravity of my behavior. Some might call the overthrowing of an illegitimate government an act of treason. Without a doubt, many have had this thought about me. Now that you have joined us, it is the same thought that others will have about you. But loyalty to a higher truth is not treason. For the ways of God are not the ways of man, and they are most emphatically not the ways of women. So this is their justification of overthrowing the entire United States government and trying to take over the entire country to create a gigantic fucking religious regime that rules with an iron fist and a leather glove and woolen mittens, or whatever you want to fucking say. It's fucking disgusting, but this is how they're justifying it. Their belief or their ideas that they have spread to all of their people, which is just a way for them to fucking gain control of everything and do what they want in their own vision, while not taking fucking responsibility for they are actual fucking treasonous fucking traitors and disgusting fucking human beings. Anyway, Vidala watched us being lectured by him, smiling a tiny smile. Whatever he was persuading us about was already an accepted creed to her. I took care not to react. It's a skill, not reacting. He looked from one blank face to another. "You may drink your coffee," he said, "a valuable commodity that is increasingly difficult to obtain. It would be a sin to reject what God has provided to his favored ones through his bounty." At this, we picked up our cups as if it was a ceremonial communion. He continued, because he's got lots to say. He's got to have his fucking opinion blasted all over. "We have seen the results of too much laxity, too much hunger for material luxuries, and the absence of the meaningful structures that lead to a balanced and stable society. Our birth rate, for various reasons, but most significantly, through the selfish choices of women is in free fall. You do agree that human beings are at their most unhappy, when in the midst of chaos? That rules and boundaries promote stability and thus happiness? You follow me so far? So I agree. Rules and routine and all of that, they can create stability and happiness. But when those rules and traditions and all of that are so freaking extreme, you're not really creating happiness. You're burying and hiding the unhappiness under the role playing that everybody has to do just to survive. They're all unhappy. They're all unhappy as fucking shit. But they can't show it, because if they show how unhappy they are, they're gonna be fucking dead, especially the women. But even the men, if they show that they're too unhappy in this great new religious regime they've created, they're going to be looked on as traitors and killed. And no, I can't guarantee that every single man in this situation and every single woman in this situation is completely unhappy. But I would be willing to bet that every goddamn one of them has something they're unhappy with that they're hiding. And the ones that are the most happy are probably the most fucking seditious and disgusting and the most likely need to be killed. But they won't be killed because they serve the purposes of this dystopic regime. We nodded. Is that a yes? He pointed at Elizabeth. Yes, she said in a voice squeaky with fright. She was younger and still attractive then. She hadn't yet allowed her body to engorge. I have noted since that some kinds of men like to bully beautiful women. Yes, Commander Judd, he admonished. Titles must be respected. Yes, Commander Judd. I could smell her fear from across the table. I wondered if she could smell mine. It has an acid smell, fear. It's corrosive. She, too, has been alone in the dark, I thought. She has been tested in the stadium. She, too, has gazed into herself and has seen the void. Society is best served by separate spheres for men and women, Commander Judd continued in a sterner voice. We have seen the disastrous results of the attempt to meld those spheres. Any questions so far? Yes, Commander Judd, I said. I have a question. He smiled, though not warmly. Proceed. What do you want? He smiled again. Thank you. What do we want from you in particular? We're building a society congruent with the divine order, a city upon a hill, a light to all nations. And we are acting out of charitable care and concern. Oh, aren't they so good and benevolent? See, this is how people who think they are doing the right thing and doing good and helping others can severely harm other people. They think they have the fucking answer. They think they know what they're doing, and they think they're helping everybody else out. But in reality, their help is fucking harming everybody. And that can go the same way on the other side. People who legitimately seem to be really trying to help people, that think that they're helping them, but they never fucking stopped to ask the people they're helping what help they actually need. They never stopped to actually talk to the people on the ground that are dealing with the problems. What are you really struggling with? What is the most difficult? What are the challenges that you actually could use some fucking help with? And if you don't ever do that, you're not actually getting to the root of the problem. You're not getting to the real problems they have. You're not finding solutions that work with them. And top that off, because you're looking at the answers that you think are right, that you think work for your lot and the people that you know they've worked for, but you don't actually know the people you're trying to help. You're putting in help that might very well help you and yours, that might very well help other groups of people that are similar to the ones that you understand, that you know. But you're not putting in implementations that are based on these people and what they need and what they know and what they're going through. But these people, these are just like, oh, we know the answer because we're going to go with our God-given right to make this a godly country. And of course, you women don't fucking belong in control because what? The Bible says so? I mean, I would question that myself, because there's multiple passages in the Bible that the women are sometimes in leadership positions. There are also multiple positions in the Bible where they're not. But there's lots of fucking different situations in the Bible. There's lots of hypocrisy in the Bible. There's lots of situations where one writer in the Bible sees things one way and another writer of the Bible sees things another way. But these people aren't truly going by the Bible. Not truly. They're picking out the pieces that they want, that work for what they envision, and they're leaving the other shit out. And then they're doing the great fucking service of making it so no women, except for the aunts, but we don't know that yet, no women are allowed to be able to fucking read or write, so they can't fucking read any of this. They don't know what the hell is in the Bible. I mean, initially they do because they were brought up in the old world. But these new generations, like those in the Testaments, they've been brought up at least from an age where they have some ability to learn and understand more complex ideas and thoughts. They're being brought up where they have no reading, they have no writing, they are not allowed to do this stuff. And then you could imagine that any generation that comes after that, they're going to be even more separated from all that stuff. Ugh. Luckily, I don't think they're going to get to a next generation after this that has absolutely no fucking knowledge whatsoever, no experience of being raised at all in an environment with women that are able to read or write or taught to read or write. And I suspect that in this huge amount of space that they're calling Gilead, that there are some places where, guess what? They are teaching the girls to read and write. They're just not telling anybody. That they are doing things to teach them and for them to maybe possibly improve their lives later on. They just have to hide it from everybody. Because I imagine, like, the fucking United States is huge. It's huge. And in these stories, we are only concentrating on this area of DC, Boston, that kind of thing. We hear a little bit about Colorado, a little bit about the colonies, but everything else, all we hear of is the stories about the battles and wars that are going on the fringes. Everything else, we don't really hear a lot. In this, I think they talk a little bit about the people in Vermont and stuff like that. But you don't hear much of anything about the rest of it. And it's huge. They're already struggling with having the commanders that they need to command just this area of like the old New England colonies area. They already have problems with that. So how are they covering the command positions over there? How are those people leading? We don't know. We don't know. We don't hear about it. But anyway, I think I got a little off track. Sometimes I got things that pop up in my mind and I just start talking and just go off in left field. All right, let's see. Where were we? I'm just going to start at the top of the paragraph because I don't think I finished the paragraph. He smiled again. Thank you. What do you want? What do we want from you in particular? We're building a society congruent with the divine order, a city upon a hill, a light to all nations, and we are acting out of charitable care and concern. We believe that you, with your privileged training, are well qualified to aid us in ameliorating the distressing lot of women that has been caused by the decadent and corrupt society we are now abolishing. He paused. You wish to help? This time, pointing a finger, singled out to Helena. Yes, Commander Judd, almost a whisper. Good. You're all intelligent women. Through your former... He did not want to say professions. Though through your former experiences, you are familiar with the lives of women. You know how they are likely to think, or let me rephrase that, how they are likely to react to stimuli, both positive and less positive. You can therefore be of service, a service that will qualify you for certain advantages. We would expect you to be spiritual guides and mentors, leaders, so to speak, within your own womanly sphere. More coffee? He poured, we stirred, sipped, waited. Simply put, he continued, we want you to help us to organize the separate sphere, the sphere for women, with as its goal the optimal amount of harmony, both civic and domestic, and the optimal number of offspring. Other questions? Elizabeth put up her hand. Yes, he said. Will we have to pray and so forth, she asked. Prayer is cumulative, he said. You'll come to understand what a lot of reasons you'll have to give thanks to a power greater than yourselves. My colleague, he indicated Vidala, has volunteered to be our spiritual instructor, having been part of our movement since its inception. There was a pause while Elizabeth, Helena, and I absorbed this information. By this greater power did he mean himself? I am sure we can help, I said finally, but it will take a considerable amount of work. Women have been told for so long that they can achieve equality in the professional and public spheres. They will not welcome the segregation. It was always a cruelty to promise them equality, he said, since by their nature they can never achieve it. We have already begun the merciful task of lowering their expectations. I did not want to inquire about the means being used. Were they similar to those that had been applied to me? We waited while he poured more coffee for himself. Of course, you will need to create laws and all of that, he said. You'll be given a budget, a base of operations, and a dormitory. We've set aside a student residential complex for you within the walled compound of one of the former universities that we've requisitioned. It will not need much alteration. I am sure it will be comfortable enough. Here I took a risk. If it is to be a separate female sphere, I said, it must be truly separate. Within it, women must command. Except in extreme need, men must not pass the threshold of our allotted premises, nor shall our methods be questioned. We shall be judged solely by our results. Though we will, of course, report to the authorities if and when it's necessary. He gave me a measuring look, then opened his hands and turned them palms up. Carte blanche, he said, within reason and within budget. Subject, of course, to my final approval. So with that one freaking statement, that one freaking request that she just got approved, she is enabling these aunts to have tremendous amount of power that is not given to the men over these women. The ability to keep the men out of her freaking purview, to keep them out from questioning her or anything unless there's an extreme situation. And even that, it goes through Commander Judd and nobody else. Yes, we have these guards and stuff around, but the guards are there for whatever form of protection that the ants are requesting. They're not supposed to be there to like report back to other commanders and shit like that. Although I imagine some of them are eyes, and they are, but it gives them a lot of leeway, in my opinion. It opens the door for all kinds of things, yet they have this power. They have this ability, and no other females in the entire system have it. I looked at Elizabeth and Helena and saw grudging admiration. I tried for more power than they would have dared to ask for, and I'd won it. Of course, I said. I'm not convinced that's wise, said Vidala, letting them run their own affairs to that extent. Women are weak vessels. Even the strongest of them should not be allowed to... Cut her off. Cut her off. Commander Judd, cut her off. Men have better things to do than to concern themselves with the petty details of the female sphere. There must be women competent enough for that. He nodded at me, and Vidala shot me a look of hatred. The women of Gilead will have occasion to be grateful to you, he continued. So many regimes have done these things badly, so unpleasantly, so wastefully. If you fail, you will fail all women, as Eve did. Now I will leave you to your collective deliberations. And so we began. So he's on one hand saying, okay, you girls are special. You have the strength and the ability and the skills and the experience to run this entire sphere of women. But on the other hand, he's also saying, you fail, though, and you failed all the women. There's no in between. You either succeed and you bring up this great regime that is the vision that we envision, or you screw up and you failed all the women. You're just a big fucking failure, which is going to put fucking tremendous amount of pressure on them. But he's also saying that these women are strong enough to do a job. They are strong enough to run an entire fucking sphere of Gilead. So he's lying to himself and everybody else right there. Women have convinced themselves that they can have this equality, that they can have jobs, that they can handle all this stuff. But really, we know better. We know that that's not in their nature. And naturally, because their natural proclivities, they can't handle this. That's why it's been so bad. It's been so awful. So therefore, we have to take this away from them. We have to lower their expectations. But at the same time, hey, not you girls. You girls are, you're a different kind. Maybe you're a little bit closer to men than we give you credit for. Maybe you're just a different animal. You're a different species. Whatever they can to justify this situation where they say girls can't have jobs, yet they're like, oh, well, you're the exception. You're different. Because what positions do we see aunts in? The Marthas have only one specified role. I mean, yeah, taking care of these households, the food and the nursing and all of that stuff, taking care of the babies and all of that shit, is more than one thing. But it's that set of roles that they're supposed to follow. The handmaids, one role they're supposed to follow, creating this new regime of freaking children that are going to grow up to solidify this vision that they have. Now, I don't know how they get away with it with the freaking econo people, because they're telling those women that they got to do it all. They got to do it all that the men aren't doing. The men are doing the spare jobs and everything, but the women are supposed to do all the stuff that the wives and the Marthas and the aunts and the handmaids, all of them are doing. They're supposed to do everything. Do Econo people get handmaids? Do Econo people get Marthas? Do Econo people get freaking Gilead wives? No. They're these families that are being told to do all of it. Maybe within whatever way that Gilead said that they could do it, but still, they're doing it all. While the commanders, they get a whole household of people that only have one set role. It's all a bunch of fucking bull malarkey and hypocrisy, but... And the fact that he says so many regimes have done these things badly, so unpleasantly, so wastefully, like they're going to do so much better. But then we see through all the little shit that happens that is hypocritical and that doesn't even follow their rules, or that they'll say there's one set of rules, but then there's this other exception that doesn't follow those rules. We see that throughout the whole fucking thing. That there is tons of hypocrisy in this, that they're no better than anybody else that they thought had come before them. It's the same kind of fucking dystopic, fucking authoritarian regime that's going to come crashing down eventually. It's just how long is it going to take, and what is it going to take for it to come crashing down? Because these things don't survive. They don't. I mean, granted, it doesn't look like democracy survives either, but that's another story that we seem to be learning here in America. Our democracy doesn't seem to be doing so well. Although some people are saying, oh, it could be a lot worse, because if our democracy wasn't as strong as it was, then it would have already been headlong so much worse than it already is. But in my eyes, this is a fucking disaster. Just in the last 10 years is so much worse than it was 10 years ago. Anyway, during these initial sessions, I took stock of my fellow founders, for as founders, we would be revered in Gilead. Commander Judd had promised. If you are familiar with school playgrounds of the rougher sort, or with hen yards, or indeed with any situation in which the rewards are small, but the competition for them is fierce, you will understand the forces at work. Despite our pretense of amity, indeed of collegiality, the underlying currents of hostility were already building. If it's a hen yard, I thought, I intend to be the alpha hen. To do that, I needed to establish pecking rights over the others. In Vidala, I had already made an enemy. She had seen herself as the natural leader, but that view had been challenged. She would oppose me in every way she could, but I had an advantage. I was not blinded by ideology. This would give me a flexibility she lacked in the long game ahead of us. So this is actually a line that maybe we should consider for in the TV show The Handmaid's Tale for Lawrence. He was not constrained or blinded by ideology. He was in it for a different reason. He did not believe all this God shit. He was not a big Bible person. He was not into that stuff. And it gave him a certain amount of flexibility when it came to how he did things, especially once his wife so vehemently pointed out to him that all of this awful, horrible, traumatic shit was his fault. That he created this, that he designed it, that he made it happen, and it's his fault. Once he realized that, once it was like really fucking in his face, and his wife ends up dying because she can't fucking deal with the repercussions of his shit. Like he was already trying to hide it, and he was already, you could see he was doing shit that Gilead wouldn't allow for a while. But I think after that, things got really bad, and she was really like, like, this is on you. You did this. You did this. You're killing me. You're killing us. Like, yeah, I think that made him really want to change things. So he still kind of believes that there are these problems that he got into it for, that he thought he was going to solve, that still need to be solved. And he wants to still solve them. But he also sees that this fucking religious fucking death grip that Gilead has on everybody is killing everybody from inside. And so that has to change also. So I think that flexibility of him not having this blinding ideology was helpful. And maybe there are other people like that in Gilead that might have that kind of mentality. But you have to also have the characteristics to fucking weather that. Because anybody in Gilead sees that kind of shit, and you're going to get targeted. Lawrence was able to hide some of that for a long time because of his high position, because of the things that he did for Gilead. But eventually, they started really paying attention. Like, these things you're doing are not going to fly. We're not going to just let it go. And they start paying more attention. They start checking him on shit more. Start making threats. Until he gets into the position where he fucking takes one of them out that was the biggest threat. But yeah, it's interesting stuff to think about. All right, let's see. Of the other two, Helena would be the easiest to steer, as she was the most unsure of herself. She was plump at the time, though she has dwindled since. One of her former jobs had been the lucrative weight loss company, she told us. That was before she'd segued into PR work for her high-fashion lingerie company and had acquired an extensive shoe collection. Such beautiful shoes, she mourned, before Vidala shut her down with a frown. Helena would follow the prevailing wind. I decided that would work for me as long as I was that wind. Elizabeth was a higher social sphere, by which I mean very obviously higher than mine. It would lead her to underestimate me. She was a Vassar girl and had worked as an executive assistant to a powerful female senator in Washington. Presidential potential, she had confided. But the think tank had broken something in her. Her birthright and education had not saved her, and she was dithery. One by one, I could handle them. But if they combined into a mob of 3, I would have trouble. Divide and conquer would be my motto. Keep steady, I told myself. Don't share too much about yourself. It will be used against you. Listen carefully. Save all clues. Don't show fear. By week, we invented laws, uniforms, slogans, hymns, names. Week by week, we reported to Commander Judge, who turned to me as the spokeswoman of the group. For those concepts he approved, he took the credit. Plaudits flowed his way from the other commanders. How well he was doing. Did I hate the structure we were concocting? On some level, yes. It was a betrayal of everything we'd been taught in our former lives, and of all that we'd achieved. Was I proud of what we managed to accomplish despite the limitations? Also, on some level, yes. Things are never simple. For a time, I almost believed what I understood I was supposed to believe. I numbered myself among the faithful for the same reason that many in Gilead did. Because it was less dangerous. What good is it to throw yourself in front of a steamroller out of moral principles and then be crushed flat like a sock emptied of its foot? Better to fade in the crowd, the piously praising, unctuous, hate-mongering crowd. Better to hurl rocks than to have them hurled at you, or better for your chances of staying alive. They knew that so well, the architects of Gilead. Their kind has always known that. I will record here that some years later, after I had tightened my grip over Ardua Hall and had leveraged it to acquire the extensive, though silent power in Gilead that I now enjoy, Commander Judd, sensing that the balance had shifted, sought to propitiate me. "I hope you have forgiven me, Aunt Lydia," he said. "For what, Commander Judd?" I asked in my most affable tone. Could it be that he might have become a little afraid of me? "The stringent measures I was forced to take at the outset of our association," he said, "in order to separate the wheat from the chaff." "Oh," I said, "I am sure your intentions were noble." "I believe so. But still, the measures were harsh." I smiled, said nothing. "I spotted you as wheat right from the beginning." I continued to smile. "Your rifle contained a blank," he said. "I thought you would like to know." "So kind of you to tell me," I said. The muscles of my face were beginning to hurt. Under some conditions, smiling is a workout. "I am forgiven then?" he asked. If I hadn't been so keenly aware of his preference for barely nubile young women, I'd have thought he was flirting. I plucked a scrap from the grab bag of the vanished past. To err is human, to forgive divine, as someone once remarked. "You are so erudite." Last evening, after I'd finished writing, had tucked my manuscript away into the hollow cavern within the Cardinal Newman, and was on my way to the Schlafly Cafe, I was accosted on the pathway by Aunt Vidala. "Aunt Lydia, may I have a word?" she said. It is a request to which the answer must always be yes. I invited her to accompany me to the cafe. Across the yard, the white and many-pillared home base of the Eyes was brightly lit. Faithful to their namesake, the lidless eye of God, they never sleep. 3 of them were standing on the white stairway outside their main building, having a cigarette. They didn't glance our way. In their view, the aunts are like shadows, their own shadows, fearsome to others, but not to them. As we passed my statue, I checked out the offerings. Fewer eggs and oranges than usual. Was my popularity slipping? I resisted the urge to pocket an orange. I could come back later. Aunt Vidala sneezed, the prelude to an important utterance. Then she cleared her throat. "I shall take this occasion to remark that there has been some uneasiness expressed about your statue," she said. "Really?" I said. "In what way?" "The offerings, the oranges, the eggs. Aunt Elizabeth feels that this excess attention is dangerously close to cult worship, which would be idolatry," she added, "a grave sin." "Indeed," I said. "What an illuminating insight." "Also, it is a waste of valuable food. She says it's practically sabotage." "I do so agree," I said. "No one is more eager than I to avoid even the appearance of a cult of personality." "Right. As you know, I support strict rules concerning nutrient intake. We leaders at the hall must set a high example, even in such matters as second helpings, especially of hard-boiled eggs." Here I paused. I had video footage of Aunt Elizabeth in the refectory, secreting these portable food items in her sleeves. But this was not the moment to share, because as we know, Aunt Lydia always keeps these moments for when she finds them most valuable to her situation. As for the offerings, such manifestations on the part of others are beyond my control. I cannot prevent unknown persons from leaving tokens of affection and respect, of loyalty and thanks, such as baked goods and fruit items, at the feet of my effigy, however undeserved by myself. It goes without saying. "Not prevent them ahead of time," said Aunt Vidala, "but they might be detected and punished." "We have no rule about such actions," said I. "So no rule has been broken." "Then we should make a rule," said Aunt Vidala. "I will certainly consider it," I said, "and the appropriate punishment. These things need to be tactfully done." It would be a pity to give up the oranges, I reflected. They are intermittent given the undependable supply lines. But I believe you have more to add? By this time we had reached the Schlafly Cafe. We seated ourselves at one of the pink tables. "A cup of warm milk?" I asked. "I'll treat you." "I can't drink milk," she said peevishly. "It's mucus forming." I always offer Aunt Vidala warm milk at my expense, which displays my generosity, milk not being a part of our common rations, but an elective, paid for with the tokens we are given according to our status. She always declines irascibly. "Oh, sorry," I said. "I've forgotten. Some mint tea, then." Once our drinks were in front of us, she got down to her main business. "The fact is," she said, "I personally have witnessed Aunt Elizabeth placing food items at the foot of your statue, hard-boiled eggs in particular. Fascinating, I said. Why would she be doing that? To create evidence against you, she said. That's my opinion. Evidence? I'd thought Elizabeth had merely been eating those eggs. This was more creative use for them. I was quite proud of her. I believe she's preparing to denounce you, to divert attention from herself and her own disloyal activities. She may be the traitor within us here at Ardua Hall, working with the Mayday terrorists. I have long suspected her of heresy, said Aunt Vidala. So, according to this, Aunt Vidala is thinking it's Aunt Elizabeth that might be the fucking Mayday traitor, when we know it is probably Aunt Lydia. But then again, do we really know if there's not more than one? I don't know, but it's funny. It's amusing. Interesting. I experienced a jolt of excitement. This was a development I hadn't anticipated. Vidala snitching on Elizabeth, and to me of all people, despite her long-standing loathing of me. Wonders never cease. That is shocking news, if true. Thank you for telling me, I said. You shall be rewarded. Though there is no proof at present, I shall take the precaution of communicating your suspicions to Commander Judd. Thank you, said Aunt Vidala in turn. I confess that I once had doubts as to your fitness as our leader here at Ardua Hall. But I have prayed about it. It was wrong to have such doubts. I apologize. Everyone makes mistakes, I said magnanimously. We are only human. Under his eye, she said, bowing her head. Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. Having no friends, I must make do with enemies. Frenemies. Frenemies! Anybody remember that TV show? Friendly enemies. Enemy frenemies. Enemies friends. Not real friends. Enemies. But you pretend that they're friends. Okay. Let's see here. All right. So that was chapter 29. Again, another part where it is one chapter specifically for Aunt Lydia. Most of the parts that have multiple chapters are other people, although we're going to come to one later on down the road, not too much later, that is several chapters that are Aunt Lydia. But right now, it's still one chapter at a time. I know some people were complaining about the TV show not having much of Aunt Lydia's story, not having much of Aunt Lydia's narrative or perspective. But if you look at the way the book is written, like so far, anytime Aunt Lydia has a part, it is just one chapter. Whereas the other two girls have multiple chapters in most of their parts. So, something to think about. All right, let's go ahead and get started with part 12 called Carpitz. So this again is going to be with Daisy in her flashbacks of finding out that now she has heard that she's baby Nicole and trying to process that. Going through what they're going through, processing that she's baby Nicole, getting all this information that is very, very new to her after her, what she believed were her parents had just been killed. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on this. Part 12, Carpitz. Transcript of Witness Testimony 369B, Chapter 30. I was telling you about the moment when Elijah said that I wasn't who I thought I was. I don't like remembering that feeling. It was like having a sinkhole open up and swallow you. Not only you, but your house, your room, your past, everything you'd ever known about yourself, even the way you looked. It was falling and smothering in darkness all at once. I must have sat there for at least a minute, not saying anything. I felt I was gasping for breath. I felt chilled through. Baby Nicole with her round face and her unknowing eyes. Every time I'd seen that famous photo, I'd been looking at myself. That baby had caused a lot of trouble for a lot of people just by being born. How could I be that person? Inside my head, I was denying it. I was screaming no, but nothing came out. I don't like this, I said at last in a small voice. None of us likes it, said Elijah kindly. We would all like reality to be otherwise. I wish there was no Gilead, I said. That's our goal, said Ada, no Gilead. She said it in the practical way she had, as if no Gilead was as easy as fixing a dripping tap. You want some coffee? I shook my head. I was still trying to take it in. So I was a refugee, like the frightened women I'd seen in Sanctucare. Like the other refugees everyone was always arguing about. My health card, my only proof of identity, was a fake. I'd never legally been in Canada at all. I could be deported at any time. My mother was a handmaid, and my father? So my father's one of those, I said, a commander? The idea of part of him being part of me, being inside my actual body, made me shiver. Luckily not, said Elijah, or not according to your mother, though she doesn't wish to endanger your real father by saying so, as he may still be in Gilead. But Gilead is staking its claim to you via our official father. It's on those grounds they've always demanded your return. The return of baby Nicole, he clarified. Gilead had never given up the idea of finding me, Elijah told me. They'd never stopped looking. They were very tenacious. To their way of thinking, I belonged to them, and they had a right to track me down and haul me across the border by whatever means, legal or legal. I was underage, and although that particular commander had disappeared from view, most likely in a purge, I was his, according to their legal system. He had living relatives, so if it came to a court case, they might well be granted custody. Mayday couldn't protect me because it was classified internationally as a terrorist organization. It existed underground. And if you look at some of the stuff that they're doing with our policy right now, they are trying very hard to propose policies that would make just regular everyday Americans who don't agree with the current system, with the current MAGA and Heritage Foundation people, make them into terrorists, domestic terrorists, and anybody who's an activist or anything against the current administration, even more so. They are trying to put in laws that would make regular activity that expresses disillusion or disagreement with the things that these people are trying to push considered terrorist activities. This is real. Like, this is really happening. They are trying to push this stuff. That should scare people. because it isn't just about attacking extremist activists. It's about attacking all of them. It's about attacking anybody who doesn't agree with the powers that be are in place right now. We've planted a few false leads over the years, said Ada. You were reported in Montreal and also in Winnipeg. Then you were said to be in California, and after that in Mexico. We moved you around. Was that why Melanie and Neil didn't want me going to the march? In a way, said Ada. So I did it. It was my fault, I said. Wasn't it? How do you mean, said Ada. They didn't want me seen, I said. They got killed because they were hiding me. Not exactly, said Elijah. They didn't want pictures of you circulating. They didn't want you on TV. Gilead might conceivably search the images of the march, try to match them. They had your baby picture. They must have had an approximate idea of what you might look like now. But as it turned out, they'd suspected independently that Melanie and Neil were Mayday. They might have been following me, said Ada. They might have connected me with Sanctucare and then with Melanie. They've placed informants inside Mayday before. At least one fake escaped handmaid, maybe more. Maybe even inside Sanctucare, said Elijah. I thought of the people who used to go to those meetings at our house. It was sickening to think that one of them might have been planning to kill Melanie and Neil, even while they were eating the grapes and pieces of cheese. So that part had nothing to do with you, said Ada. I wondered if she was just trying to make me feel better. I hate being baby Nicole, I said. I didn't ask to be. Life sucks. End of story, said Ada. Now we have to work out where to go from here. Elijah left, saying he'd be back in a couple hours. Don't go out. Don't look out the window, he said. Don't use a phone. I'll arrange for a different car. Ada opened a tin of chicken soup. She said I needed to get something inside me, so I tried. What if they come, I asked. What do they even look like? They look like anybody, said Ada. In the afternoon, Elijah came back. With him was George, the old street guy I'd once thought was stalking Melanie. It's worse than we thought, said Elijah. George saw it. Saw what, said Ada. There was a closed sign on the shop. It's never closed in the day, so I wondered, said George. Then 3 guys came out and put Melanie and Neil into the car. They were kind of walking them as if they were drunk. They were talking, making it look social, like they'd have been having a chat, and we're just saying goodbye. Melanie and Neil just sat in the car. Looking back, they were slumping as if they were asleep. We're dead, said Ada. Yeah, could be, said George. The 3 guys went off. About 1 minute later, the car blew up. That's way worse than we thought, said Ada. What did they tell before inside the store? They wouldn't have said anything, said Elijah. We don't know that, said Ada. Depends on the tactics. Eyes are harsh. We need to move out of here fast, George said. I don't know if they saw me. I didn't want to come here, but I didn't know what to do, so I called. Sanctucare and Elijah came and got me, but what if they are tapping my phone? Let's trash it, said Ada. What kind of guys? Elijah asked. Suits. Businessmen, respectable looking, said George. They had briefcases. I bet they did, said Ada. And they stuck one of them in the car. I'm sorry about this, George said to me. Neil and Melanie were good people. I need to go, I said, because I was going to start crying. So I went into the bedroom and I shut the door. That didn't last long. 10 minutes later, there was a knock when Ada opened my door. We're moving, she said, toot sweet. I was in bed with the duvet pulled up to my nose. Where? I said. Curiosity got the cat in trouble. Let's go. We went down the big staircase, but instead of going outside, we went into one of the downstairs apartments. Ada had a key. The apartment was like the one upstairs, furnished with new things, nothing personal. It looked lived in, but just barely. There was a duvet on the bed, identical to the one upstairs. In the bedroom was a black backpack. There was a toothbrush in the bathroom, but nothing in the cabinet. I know because I looked. Melanie used to say that 90% of people looked in other people's bathroom cabinets. So you should never keep your secrets in there. Now I was wondering where she actually did keep her secrets, because she must have had a lot of them. Who lives here? I asked Ada. Garth, she said. He'll be our transport. Now, quiet as mice. What are we waiting for? I asked. When's something going to happen? Wait long enough and you won't be disappointed, said Ada. Something will happen, only you might not like what it is. Oh, so that's it. That is all for that chapter. Woo! Okay. So we got more information about Daisy's background, about her real parents, the situation with her surrogate parents, basically, that her father obviously was not a commander, at least initially. Now on the TV show, he ends up becoming a commander. But this is a different story. They don't know if he's still in Gilead or if he's out of Gilead, but June is not saying to preserve his possible prospects. And then, of course, June was the handmaid, and Daisy is baby Nicole, and she's just finding out, and she's like, holy fucking shit, this is so fucking unreal. And it's making her feel like everything that she knew and everything that she thought she knew was all just gone. It was all just a big lie. It was all just evaporating with the bubble that just broke, that was her life. Was that life real? It was real, but it was based on all these lies. And so she's going to see it as like, just like this is this whole collapsing of her world. She thought she knew who she was, and all of a sudden everything about her is in question. Everything about her life, everything about the people that she knew as her parents, everything that she understands about the world, it's all in question. She says that she has never been a legal citizen of Canada. She's always been there illegally. And she could be deported at any time. That's a huge thing to find out when you thought that you were just living a totally normal life as a regular Canadian citizen. It's fucking huge. Anyway, that's all I got to say for you for now. I will see you when I see you. Like I've told you before, I will go to my schedule. We do these live readings every Sunday and Tuesday. I have Testament TV show reactions every Tuesday, and every Friday I do solo leveling reactions. And eventually the solo leveling will end and I will switch back to the last part of Tokyo Ghoul Re. And then after that, we'll be done with Tokyo Ghoul. So, anyway, that's all I got for you. Till I'll see you when I see you. Bye.